Breaking news today, January 3rd, 2026. German officials are supporting sending military forces to Ukraine. Finally. Some German politicians, according to Spiegel, believe the participation of German forces in a potential peacekeeping mission. Well, it should not be ruled out. This is a monumental step. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Aria and the latest from Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover Germany's shocking pivot from a cautious defense donor to a potential peacekeeper, and what that really means for Europe's security architecture in 2026.
This is so much more than just a policy debate. We are really witnessing the full institutionalization of Germany's Zeitenwende, that historic turning point they announced way back in 2022. Our sources are detailing this shift on multiple fronts. You've got the political changes under Chancellor Friedrich Merz, you've got radical military service reforms, and then there's the high-stakes diplomacy and peace talks. Our mission today is to really understand the concrete steps Germany is taking to go from just reacting to, actually becoming Europe's long-term security anchor.
And the commitment is, it's startlingly real. Germany's already making 18-year-olds register for potential future military service. And maybe the biggest piece of this, Chancellor Merz is openly talking about a new European-led force, one that's designed not just to monitor a ceasefire, but to actually repel Russian incursions. That changes everything. So let's just start there. For anyone who's followed Germany's post-war identity, this focus on economic strength and diplomatic caution, this talk of deploying troops to Ukraine is frankly breathtaking.
It really is.
And we should be clear, of course, any actual deployment depends on a formal peace agreement or a ceasefire being in place first.
Right. But the momentum is undeniable, and it's being driven by Chancellor Friedrich Merz. He's been really explicit about Berlin's willingness to join a European-led, multinational peacekeeping mission. And what's so interesting is how he justifies it. He doesn't frame it as some optional thing. He calls it a great responsibility that's directly tied to the security of the entire European political order.
So it's not about just helping Ukraine anymore.
Exactly. It's about securing Europe's own future.
This proposed force, they're calling it the multinational force Ukraine. But if the mandate includes repelling Russian forces, doesn't that blur the line? I mean, that sounds less like peacekeeping and more like, warfighting. How can he justify that kind of risk?
That is the crucial redefinition happening right now. This is not traditional UN peacekeeping, which is all about neutrality and limited engagement. Merz is positioning this as a robust, deterrence-focused security guarantee. He's on record saying the peacekeepers have to be authorized to act decisively to repel Russian forces if a ceasefire is violated. So the force is designed to enforce the peace, not just watch it.
It gives teeth to the promises.
It absolutely does. And it echoes what we heard before from former Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. She was advocating for stationing European troops right on the front line to make sure any peace was actually a lasting one, not just a pause for Russia to rearm.
Okay, so the political leadership seems to be on board with this extraordinary new mandate. But what about the German people? They're famously sensitive to military action. Are they buying into this?
The public is, they're deeply divided. It's far from a settled issue. There was a Forza poll back in August 2025 that showed it was almost a 50-50 split. You had 49% supporting sending German soldiers as part of a European force, but 45% were against it.
And I imagine that opposition is stronger in certain areas.
For sure. It's much stronger in the ex-communist eastern regions. It just goes to show you that historical anxieties are still a huge factor in modern security policy. The Merz government knows it's leading ahead of public opinion here.
Which means they must see the threat as incredibly urgent.
They do.
So if you're going to make these promises, this political pivot has to be backed up by actual capability. You can't promise to repel Russia if you don't have the soldiers.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the domestic overhaul of the Bundeswehr, which is it's radical. The core of it all is the new military service law, approved in December 2025. You should think of this law as the most serious step toward restoring some form of national service, so they got rid of it back in 2011. This is Germany laying the physical foundation for its new ambition.
So what does this law mean for, say, an 18-year-old in Germany right now?
It means things are changing immediately. Starting January 1st, 2026, all 18-year-old men, so anyone born in 2008 or later, they have to complete a mandatory questionnaire.
Questionnaire? What for?
It assesses their motivation, their fitness, their health, basically everything needed to see if they're suitable for service. And while it's voluntary for women, it is compulsory for men. They've also brought back the mandatory medical examination for suitable men. It's a revival of the old conscription model's central pillar.
And the numbers they're aiming for confirms this isn't just a recruitment drive. This is a total rebuild.
The goals are massive. Right now, Germany has about 183,000 active personnel. The plan is to get that up to around 260,000. But the real long-term goal, the number that shows you how serious they are, is getting to a total of roughly 470,000 personnel, once you include reservists.
That's a force prepared for long-term deterrence, not just a small mission.
Exactly.
And then there's the controversial part, the thing that shows the government's true intent. The Bedarfsverpflichtung.
The needs-based conscription, yes. This is the ultimate backstop, and it's written right into the law. If not enough people volunteer, if they can't hit those huge quotas, the Bundestag can authorize a limited draft through a lottery system. They call it a last resort.
But critics would say the mandatory questionnaires are just setting the stage for that last resort.
And they'd be right. It's the necessary administrative first step. It's all very calculated.
And this creates a really painful situation, a paradox, for the more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees in Germany.
It's a profound and painful irony. Many of these families fled Ukraine specifically to protect their sons from being drafted and sent to the front. And now, after integrating into German society, their 18-year-old sons could find themselves on Bundeswehr mobilization lists because of this new mandatory registry.
It's a staggering thought. It just transforms the idea of European unity from a political project into a shared personal risk.
And that risk is being backed by a lot of money. The German pivot isn't just about troops. It's about Germany becoming the financial anchor for European support. For 2026 alone, the Merz government has committed over 11.5 billion euros. That's about 13.4 billion US dollars in military support for Ukraine.
Wow.
And Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has been crystal clear. Germany is prepared to keep taking the lead financially.
And just to put that number in perspective for you, Ukraine's total defense needs for 2026 are estimated at about $120 billion. Kyiv is asking its partners to cover half of that, so $60 billion. They've also suggested that allies should dedicate at least 0.25% of their GDP to military support. Germany's clearly stepping up.
And it's happening alongside these bigger, coordinated EU actions. The EU is preparing a huge new multi-billion euro package. The focus is on the most critical things: artillery, air defense, and drones. And you're also seeing this coordination get institutionalized through the PURL initiative.
PURL.
The Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List. It's basically a group of European allies, Germany, Finland, Sweden, the Baltics, pooling their money to buy necessary U.S. weapons for Ukraine.
So they're buying American weapons with the joint European fund. Why is that so important?
It's critical for two reasons. First, Europe's own stockpiles are running low, really low. And second, it uses European money to keep the supply chain for complex American systems like Patriot interceptors or guided artillery moving. These are things Europe can't build fast enough on its own. It's a very pragmatic response to a strategic emergency.
Okay, so let's shift from the battlefield logistics to the diplomatic arena. Specifically, those high-stakes peace talks at the end of 2025. There were reports about a U.S.-Russia 28-point plan that really set off alarm bells in Europe.
Oh, they absolutely did. That reported plan suggested some severe concessions from Kyiv. We're talking about ceding territory in Donbass and Crimea, plus a troop cap of only 600,000 for the Ukrainian military. Many European leaders saw that as a framework for capitulation, not for a real lasting peace.
So Europe pushed back.
Immediately, a coordinated European counterproposal came out very quickly. That framework pushed for a much higher troop cap for Ukraine, 800,000, and most importantly, it demanded a legally binding commitment from European nations to intervene if Russia ever attacked again.
So a security guarantee with real teeth.
Exactly. Baerbock was very clear on this. The goal was to prevent a sham peace that would just give Russia time to regroup and get ready for the next war.
So Germany's new assertiveness under Merz is really part of a wider, urgent European effort to secure its own future, right? It seems to be driven by the idea that they can't rely on long-term U.S. commitment.
That's the subtext for the entire Zeitenwende. And this new stance, it's really built on the foundation laid by people like Baerbock. Her foreign policy was always based on a very firm pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia position. She was the one who really championed reviving the Weimar Triangle, that partnership between Germany, France, and Poland.
Right, as a core for European solidarity.
Yes, and they even created a Weimar plus Ukraine format to make sure Kiev's security needs were always central to their thinking.
And now we're seeing that regional focus go global. Under the Merz government, With Johann Wadephul as the new foreign minister, they're looking at redefining Germany's role at the UN.
Wadephul has been calling for sweeping reforms to the UN Security Council. The argument is that its structure is just. It's outdated. It doesn't reflect 21st century realities. He's stressing the need for a stronger voice for the Global South, and MERS is backing that, supporting 2 permanent African seats on the council.
So Germany is trying to position itself not just as a regional military power, but as a global reformer.
It's all part of the same strategic vision.
So with all of this, troop registries, massive aid, UN reform, the reaction from Moscow must be intense. What is the Kremlin saying?
The response has been predictably hostile and dismissive. Russia's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, called MERS's proposals unrealistic. He even accused the German leadership of engaging in Western civilization suicide.
It's wrong words.
Very. Moscow's line is consistent. They fiercely oppose any NATO country troops in Ukraine. The mere idea of European peacekeepers who are authorized to repel Russian forces is, in their words, unacceptable. They see this German shift as a direct escalation. So to just brought all these threads together, Germany's shift under Merz feels permanent. It's really driven by this realization that Europe has to fill what they see as a U.S. deterrence gap and achieve real strategic autonomy. The new military service law is the foundation for this. It's about creating a large, deployable force for long-term deterrence. At the same time, this political willingness to lead a peacekeeping force with a warfighting mandate, well, it changes Germany's identity. They're no longer just a donor. They're becoming an active, armed security guarantor for Ukraine and, by extension, for the whole of Europe.
We've seen that Europe is taking on the risk of war through mandatory military registration and massive financial aid. But when you consider that painful irony for Ukrainian refugees in Germany, families who fled war only to have their sons potentially face a draft in their new home, it makes you ask, what is the full price? What is the ultimate moral and political trade-off of integrating defense across a unified, warring Europe? You've been listening to our Deep Dive by Defense Report, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.